in the original production, I read that, in fact, the lake is supposed to actually inundate the whole scene of the lakeside. Everything is taken over by the lake. By the lake. Not all productions do that anymore, although that's what I was going to say about the Anne Williams production. She does do that. In fact, you see the set change, and you realize that the water completely takes over the whole stage. And this is this wonderful moment after, see if I can find, there we go. Wonderful thing that goes on. It's like a big crescendo. It feels like water to me, doesn't it? Doesn't it to you? And then this is and it feels like the rays of the sun are coming up, because it's right at that moment, and I can't reproduce 4 French horns playing that note. But listen for it, if you're going tonight, or if you're, but there's a wonderful moment where the horns just blaze forth, and it's just the most amazing moment in music.
What key do you end up there?
And we end up in B major, and the whole thing started in B minor. I mean, it just completes the circle.
Radiance.
Totally completes the circle. Pardon? Very, very. You know, he was a great admirer of Wagner.
Yeah.
He was a great admirer of Wagner. Yes.
That piece of music is where some productions actually have Siegfried and the Swan Queen drifting off towards the sunset.
Well, in this production, have you seen this production yet?
Yeah, I saw it last night.
Yes. Well, I guess they end up. Of course, they've jumped into the lake.
Yes.
You don't see that. You just see the sun in last night's production. But other productions.
You didn't see them?
Their silhouettes.
They're there. Unless there was some at the very end, you do see them. They're in some sort of nirvana. I guess,
That's right.
forever. Yes, I mean, and you know, the old Soviet productions like to have a really happy ending, and when Rothbart is killed, it breaks the spell, and they all turn back. All the swans turn back into maidens. And Odette and Siegfried are reunited in real life. And that's the end. But some people think that's rather banal.
They needed that in Soviet times.
Yes, it was something about the political situation. But I mean, what I'm trying to do is just sort of get across this idea of the symphonic nature of Swan Lake.
It's also very expressive, and it's portraying characters more than other ballets must have.
Exactly. And he was always, the music just expresses so many things. And this was what was new about his music, was the human quality of it.
Total passion.
And total passion. And I don't think even in the ballets that in Sleeping Beauty and in Nutcracker, which are both incredible pieces, of course, more, you know, his experience was, as I say, he was rather chastened by this experience, because he didn't feel the production was what he had expected. And it took another 15 years for him to be persuaded to do Sleeping Beauty.
Which is amazing, really, when you think.
And of course, and the other thing about Sleeping Beauty is that he was, Petipa gave him a very detailed, unlike Swan Lake, he gave him a very detailed scenario and list of variations, and I want this allegro 16 bars, and then I want a waltz for 64 bars, and yet he still was able to produce a masterpiece like Sleeping Beauty, even within those restrictions. And the Nutcracker is just a joy. There's complete joy, and even though, you know, the extraordinary thing was that, again, he had to be persuaded to do it.
And he also tops Dilly because he chose a Hoffman story for Coppelia.
That's right.
So we've got the Nutcracker here. So
And of course, it was by that time. I mean, and as you can see, the orchestration becomes even more sophisticated. I should also say that I mean, Swan Lake is like an oboe concerto, and for 2.5 hours, and it is one of the hardest pieces for the oboe, because it never, even when the oboe is not playing solos, he's playing within the texture of the piece all the way through. It's like 3 symphonies in a row. It's not that long. We don't do all the music. Most productions don't.
The voice of the swan.
That's right. Well, the voice of the swan is the oboe.
Yes.
You know.
And the violin has quite a role to play too.
Yeah.
But
The violin,
well,
I was going to say there were 3 solos. There actually is a 4th solo. There's a very interesting story. And if we should get, I don't know whether, tell me when we should get on to the other
we
music.
should go soon.
But there are 3 solos that you will hear. I mean, wonderful writing for the violin solos. They're part of during the 2nd act. There's the Russian dance, and then what's traditionally called the Black Swan part of it, which is also a violin solo. And we have 2 excellent violinists in the Queen. By the way, I want to just tell you how extraordinary it is. What an extraordinary experience it has been to work with the Queensland Symphony. Wonderful orchestra, play with so much passion, I felt so flexible, and just wonderful. You should be very proud of this orchestra.
Thank you.
It's been great, and the program coming up. We only have 1 orchestral piece in the mixed program, which is coming up on Friday. There are 3 pieces in it.
So we're going to start with the Ratmansky choreography for the 7 sonatas.
That's right. I don't know whether his work has been seen in Queensland.
I don't think there's ever
The
been
Australian
seen.
Ballet have done, their new Cinderella is Alexei Ratmansky, but I'm not sure whether that's been done here yet.
Cinderella we've seen, but not the 7
But
sonatas.
the 7 sonatas you won't have seen, which is Scarlatti. Scarlatti, and then in the middle we have the Bach Partita, which is Trois la Table.
It's quite extraordinary how many movements come through.
And then the 3rd piece is Fancy Free, which is a creation, was created for ABT in 1944.
Yes.
With music by Leonard Bernstein, choreography by Jerome Robbins, and it is a wonderful piece. It actually, you might know the story more familiarly. Familiarly? Is that a word?
Yes. Yes.
It is more familiar in the form of On the Town, which was a musical and then became a film. Different music, same composer, but quite different music. This was written especially for this ballet. And it is a wonderful piece. It was about 3 sailors who come to town. I'm sort of going...
You might as well go into Fancy Free.
May as well go into Fancy Free.
Yes.
It is, I think, one of the greatest short storytelling ballets, certainly in American ballet.
It's quite a short story, in fact, isn't it? It's
about the 3 sailors who are on leave for a night, and they come to a bar and they're looking for some fun with some women. And actually, they end up meeting 2 women. Of course, there's 3 sailors and 2 girls, and so that creates problems. And
there's a bit of a competition going on
yes,
there,
exactly.
dance-wise.
There's a bit of a competition. There's a whole competition section where there are 3 solos. I'll play a couple of examples of that. But the thing about the Bernstein music is that it is, of course, very much, if you know West Side Story, you'll be very familiar with this music. But this is 13 to 14 years before West Side Story. And it helped to create his career, this piece. It was considered a great success. And then soon afterwards, of course, he had the...
Well, he was only 25, wasn't he?
That's
He
right.
was still really a novice and assistant conductor in New York. And Robbins was 25, so their careers had this lovely parallel.
Yes.
And then he steps in for Bruno Volta and he's writing this big ballet, and the next thing he's a star.
Yeah. And I'll just play a few things from it. It's very jazz influenced. You know, Bernstein was very, very, very enamored and knew so much about it. He was, I think he knew all the American great, not personally, but he knew all the great American songbook composers like Gershwin and Jerome Kern. But he put his own special stamp on this music. The first thing you actually hear in Fancy Free is not the orchestra, but a recording of Billie Holiday singing. And it's obviously, because it's set in a bar in New York, and it's a jukebox probably that you hear first, and the curtain is down, and the curtain goes up, and then very rudely that's interrupted by 4 whacks on the side drum. Boom, 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 boom. And then we get, oh, I'll play that better than that. So on and so forth. So, I mean, it's just tells you everything that you need to know about these guys, that music, and they're out for a lot of fun. And it's all this wonderful, unpredictable rhythm, but of course he throws in all sorts of extra beats, and the harmony is sort of crunched up sometimes, and it's very unique to Bernstein's style. So they come in, and then they have a lot of fun together, and then I wanted to say that he was influenced by a lot of composers. In particular, he was very influenced by Aaron Copland, one of the great American composers. He was a mentor for Bernstein, and you can hear some of his music in this, or at least this Copland influence music in the score. There's this lovely moment. So it's all these for open chords, they're not filled in harmonically. It's very much a Copland style. Anyway, then the first lady arrives, and she must be a pretty raunchy lady, because this is the music. So forth. So she comes in, and then I think at some point the second girl comes in, and 2 of them go off with one of the girls, and one of the sailors is left in the bar with the other girl, and they do a pas de deux. So it's interesting, this ballet, even though it's a storytelling ballet, there are certain conventions that are followed, and there's a pas de deux, there are 3 variations for the men. So it's still a ballet. But
the 3 variations are character describing, aren't they, for the men?
Yes.
You have to place
just before we get to those variations, but it's rather lovely, the beginning of, you can tell that just by listening to the music that he's wanting to seduce this woman.